Hey folks, welcome to VerifiedInvesting.com. My name is Gareth Soloway, Chief Market Strategist here. Now, in today's video, we have to take a look at a major development on the S&P 500. On Friday, we opened up, we rallied into a key resistance I've talked about. It's a key trend line. And then we reversed, closing with a daily topping tail. I'm going to dissect what a topping tail is. I'm going to teach you how to calculate it, and we're going to talk about what it means in this scenario here. Is it a market top? That's something that we're going to look at right now. All right. So first and foremost, this is the beautiful thing. I mean, if you've been under a rock, maybe you haven't seen these videos where I've laid out the wedge pattern that the S&P has been in. We've talked about this upsloping trend line going back to 2023, connecting through all the major correction pivots. We then broke down during the Liberation Day sell-off and the following, and that got us below. We've come up underneath once, and then look at what happened on Friday. We literally, I mean, look at this. You can't get closer than that. Right into that trend line right there, reversed, and this is a topping tail. Now, many of you might say, well, how do you know it's a topping tail? I mean, what's the criteria of a topping tail? So let's go over it. The first criteria is it has to be at a recent major high in the market. So what I look at is it has to be a 52-week high in the S&P or an all-time high. Well, guess what? It was both. It was a 52-week and all-time high on the S&P on Friday. So it's the highest point in recent history. That's number one. Check that out. All right. So the next factor is it must be the tail must be of significant length. It can't just be like this little tiny tail, right? That's more of a doji versus this is a significantly long tail. If we look at this, you can see, I mean, this is a pretty substantial tail. In general, from the low of the candle to the high, I always say it needs to be in the top 75% of lengths of peak to trough, right? So if you look here, it was bigger than this candle. It was probably about the size of this candle. It was bigger than this one, bigger than this one, bigger than this one. This one may be around the same, but you guys get my drift. In general, this is in the top 25%, right? So the upper echelon of size of candle length. The next factor is you must have a candle where the body is in the lower 50%. So if we look at this, right, this would be about 50% right here, we'll say, again, and that's from this high, and then you have the same thing to this low, right? So you have, again, this downward move, and let's just do that again. And so the idea is that from this point here, down here, all right, that's even a little bit more, so we'd want to bring that down just a little bit. Bear with me as I do that. I would say right around here. And you can see that the body is in the lower 50%. From low to absolute high, from the lowest point of the candle to the high, the body is in the lower 50%, right? If it's up here, that can't be a topping tail. Now, the last factor is the daily close on this candle. So where it closed must be in the lower 25%. Now you might say, well, how do we know that? Well, it's very easy actually. So what we do is we take the high of the day, right? So what was the high of this candle and the low of this candle, right? We take that difference, we multiply it by 0.25, which is 25%, and then we add it to the low of the day. And as long as the close was in or below that level, then we're good to go. So let's do that right now. So the high of the day was 67.50.87. 67.50.87. All right. What was the low of the day? The low of the day was 67.05.67. So 67.05.67. Okay. Now, what you do here is you find the difference, right? So again, on another calculator here, I'm just going to do 67.50.87 minus 67.05.67. The difference here is 45.2 points. So the difference between these two numbers is 45.2 points. So 45.20. Okay, so we have the difference maker right here. This is the difference. And now, essentially, what we're going to do is we're going to multiply this number by, what are we going to do? By 0.25, right? Because that gives us the 25% margin right there. So times 0.25, all right? And that gives us a point of $11, right? So it equals $11.30, okay? Now, what we do is to find out if we close, now we know the daily close was 67.15.78, right up here, right? 67.15.78. That was your daily close. So what you have to do is you have to add this number to this number And if it's below 67.1578, then you have a bottoming tail in the market. So we're going to add that, right? So 6 plus this $11.30 or 11.3 plus 67.05.67. And guess what? That means that we needed to close below. So here it is, guys. This is the big reveal. We needed to close below 67.1697. All right. So did the S&P close below this level? This would be the 25% threshold. And the answer is we closed on the S&P at 67.1578. So 67.1578. And is that less than this? The answer is yes. Therefore, this, my friends, is a topping tail. All right. So we closed below this level, which was the 25% in the lower 25% of that candle. That is a confirmed topping tail. Now, again, in technical analysis, and I really wanted, by the way, what I did there was I really revealed all the keys, because a lot of people will see a candle and they'll just be like, oh, it's like a topping tail. Is it really? Because it makes a difference. The key is when it's not, probability shifts. And so while it still may play out, the odds are, is it 50-50? Is it 60-40? Is it 70-30? When you get a topping tail, especially one that hits a trend line like this, there's something to that. There's usually meat and potatoes. I would say 75% chance you have a major pivot high here in the market. Now, the question is, on the downside, what are we going to look for, right? We have to look and see, do we come down and do we break this? Because really, even if with a topping tail, okay, you might get a top in the market, but we could still meander down here for a while. But the question is, when does it break, or does it break this trend line? Or remember, a topping tail can fail. I always like to point that out, because a lot of people think, oh, it's a topping tail. Well, it's a guaranteed win to the downside. And the answer is nothing's guaranteed in this game, right? What you have to do is you have to do a measurement. So if ever a candle closes above Friday's high, which was 67.5087, guess what? The topping tail's negated. And then what would you do? You would then assume that wherever you are, right? So basically you have this upsloping trend line. So you would look at this as being resistance. So this is now above. Let's say it's over here. Well, now this is resistance again, and we have to watch it, right? So you have to watch the trend lines, but this is giving us a breadcrumb to a possibility that the markets could be setting up to sell. The last thing that I want to point out to you guys after going through all of that, and so number one, to summarize, the answer is yes, it's a topping tail. It fits all the criteria. It's at the high of the chart. In recent history, it's actually a new all-time high, so obviously the high of the chart. Number two, is the body in the lower 50%? Yes. Is the close in the lower 25%, the daily close? Yes. Is it a long candle? Like from the low to the high, is it a significant candle in the top, let's say 25% of all size candles in recent history? The answer is yes. And so all of these check, they build your thesis for it being a potential top signal. Now, remember, potential is the key word. There's no guarantees, but the odds favor it being at least some sort of top here in the near term. Then we'll have to watch to see, does this trend line break? And if this trend line breaks, to me, it's like at that point, it goes to 90% probability that the cycle high is in at that point, once we break this. This here, 75% chance that we have a cycle high. If we can break and confirm below this, 90% chance. All right. And remember, I live in a world of probabilities, guys, a world of probabilities, because that's what everything chart wise is. There's nothing in stone. There's no guarantees. I have my fair share of losses, but can I win 75, 80% of the time by looking at charts and analyzing them appropriately? The answer is yes, I can by doing that. All right. All right. Now, the last thing I want to show you is something pretty cool. What I want to do is I want to go to our weekly chart here. So we're zooming out to our weekly here. And we're going to go to the COVID low, and do a parallel. And I want to show you this, guys. This is pretty remarkable. So what we're seeing here, right? What we're seeing here is that essentially, if we take these lows, and look at this, guys, look at how this works. All right. Low pivot, low pivot, low pivot, right? And then we drag this up. Look at this. High of the parallel. Holy cow. Now I'm on the weekly, right? We can go to the daily. You can still see it on the daily. Look at this. I mean, is that like, so when you see this, so this is number one, a huge reveal here, this big parallel. This goes back to the COVID lows. So you're going back almost 6 years, 5.5 years here, 5.5 years. And you have a parallel that we literally hit the high end of. All right. And by the way, so you got your daily topping tail. You hit this first trend line, which goes back to here, this first orange trend line. Then you have the parallel and the topping tail. I almost want to give it a higher percentage of probability that it's a major cycle high because of that. All right. This is huge, folks. And listen, I'm fully ready, especially the way the market's been, to be disappointed and be like, okay, well, it wasn't. On we go. We march up. But again, as a technician, if you don't take note of that, if you're someone who does technical analysis and you don't think, holy cow, topping tail daily chart hits the trend line from October of 2023 that we've been talking about for a while, and then there's a parallel that goes back to the lows since COVID and the high of the bull market in 2021. That's some major stuff, and it makes me giddy. Listen, whether it works out or not, and we talked probabilities, it's still the fact that these things can align like that. That is some pretty cool stuff. All right, guys, I just wanted to get you to this. This is amazing stuff here. I appreciate it. Send it to a friend, send it to family if you think that they would be interested in, non-hype, like just straight up probability analysis. That's really all I ask from you guys. I'll reveal all this stuff to you. Just share it with your friends and family if you think that they would benefit. All right, have a good one, guys. Thanks again. Take care.